There are things we know intellectually, concepts that totally make sense, that we still can't manage to apply to our lives without real life examples of why we should. You know, been there? One of those that was brought home to me in the last few days is about letting go of fear of repeating pain. I'm sure you've heard that when we keep looking back at what happened in the past, or when we continue to worry about what might happen in the future, we're robbing ourselves of the here and now. That has always made sense to me, and yet I had a very good example of how not following through on releasing that fear is stealing from me. And not just from me, from others. I had a little parrotlet named Bixby that I thought was going to be my companion for 20, 30 years. And yes, they do live that long. I fell in love with him so quickly, but within 2 weeks he was dead because he came to me with a disease that was killing him from the inside. When the vet gave me the necropsy results, she encouraged me to get another bird, knowing I had all the equipment already and a big heart. My initial reaction, though, was to say, oh no, I would never get another bird because I won't ever allow myself to hurt like this again. But my daughter and her friend kind of worked on me, and I did open up to bringing another bird into my home. He's a canary, Maxwell Smart. While the two birds are similar in size, they're very different in most every other aspect except that beautiful spirit that exists in both of them. In the last couple days, though, I've slipped quite a few times, calling Max Bixby. And I have had the repeating vision of Bixby at the bottom of the cage. It still rips my heart out. The repeating of that nightmare discovery in my head has been intended to make me face what I've unintentionally been doing, which is cheating both me and Max out of the kind of bond we're meant to have. By holding on to fear of a repeat of that emotional devastation, I've kept a part of my heart separate from Max out of fear that the same thing could happen again, and not wanting to invest my heart that fully again. I think you can see how that withholding is cheating both of us. And then, of course, realizing that, I had to look at how I've done the same thing in relationships. How many of us do the same in relationships, and how unfair that is to not only ourselves, but other people who could potentially be important in our lives, but are not allowed to be, because we're holding on to the hurt that other people caused us. Two birds are not alike. In the same way, two people are not alike. When we shut someone out of our life, or the chance of being in our life because someone else hurt us, how is that fair then? It's true that if we've been raised by a narcissist, we tend to think that kind of behavior is the norm, and we'll choose partners who will treat us in the same way. But I suppose we could even say that two narcissists are not alike and can't be compared, although it's probably not a healthy choice anyway. If we step outside of that pattern of choosing narcissistic partners, though, and hopefully we do step out of that pattern once we realize it's taking place. Is it fair for us to assume that person X is going to do the same thing to us that person Y did? I'm going to give you an exaggerated example here that may be silly, but also may illustrate my point. Let's say, hypothetically, the first serious lover I had in my life was named John. And it ended with John's out-of-town lover confronting me in front of not only the people at my table, but others around us in the establishment, telling me my man was effing her. And so now I associate that John with humiliation and having to face how I had invested years in someone that had such little regard for me. I could then conclude that I would never again have another John in my life, if this made sense, right? And then what if the love of my life happened to be named John? I wouldn't have anything to do with him because of his name, because I was holding on to the pain of the past. Again, it's exaggerated, but it makes as much sense as us assuming that every person is going to treat us in the same way. And that doesn't make sense, does it? We can't be holding on to the pain of the past without being unfair to ourselves or to others, because we're holding other people to a behavior that just really belonged to one person. We're not to compare ourselves to each other, and we shouldn't be comparing others to each other either. We're all individuals. We're all unique. I don't know about you, but being fair is very important to me. And this woke me up for sure.